Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Movie Night here on the Anorax Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, as always, Samee Ramirez, and sitting right next to me, my left or my right, who's to say? I don't know. But it's Dom Martino, as always. Dom, how are you doing tonight?
What's up, Samee Ramirez? What's going on?
Ramirez, Ramirez, as some call me. Oh, we love to see it. Shout out to Monaco Cowboy, one of our faves. Doing good. I'm doing good as well. And today I'm excited to talk about this movie. So for this week and for the next 2 weeks on Movie Night, we're going to be covering the Chronicles of Narnia. You caught that reference?
I did.
I didn't
Lazy
know if
Sunday.
I was too old yet. I didn't know if the kids would know that. Thank you so much.
Lazy Sunday.
The Chronicles of Narnia. If you don't know that, that's one of the greatest SNL digital shorts ever. Anyway, we're doing Chronicles of Narnia these next 3 weeks, starting today with the first movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, directed by Andrew Adamson. It came out in 2005. This movie blew my mind as a kid. I loved it so much, and I love it just as much now. So I'm really excited to get into this. I think I want to start with kind of our introduction to Narnia. Like, how did we get introduced to it? What was your first impression of it? When was the first time you saw this movie? So Dom, go ahead and start.
All right, Samee, I am a massive Narnia fan. Let me tell you what, I'm a massive Narnia fan. I got the Blu-rays back there, all 3 of them. You can't see them. I got the video game. It's over there. You can't see it either, but I love this franchise. I have the book. It's up there. Yeah.
I have the book. I have the book too. I have a bind up of all of them.
I need to get them all. I'm going to get the set, but I want the set. You know what the problem is? I need the set in order, the order set, like the original order of when they came out, because they sell them now in the stupid order. I don't like the stupid order. I like the old order. The old order is the way to go. The way that they were released. But no, I'll tell you what, like when I was in school, this was a book that I read that like I just could not put down, and it just blew my mind as a kid. And I think it's a timeless tale that not enough people talk about, and I'm happy that we're actually going to go through them, because I think that these stories are, I like Star Wars better, but they're just as timeless as Star Wars and Harry Potter, and you know, I think that oh my gosh, I almost said Louis C.K. the author.
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis, thank you. I almost said Louis C.K. I'm so sorry, Internet, but you know,
you were on the right track.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis. There's something in his writing that is unprecedented. Nobody can touch it. It's I like him, unpopular opinion, as a writer better than Tolkien, and I've read the Tolkien novels and I like the Tolkien novels, but I think as a fantasy writer, C.S. Lewis just really gets it a lot more, and he knows how to approach it in such a way that's not necessarily talking down to you or too simplistic, but it definitely is accessible, you know what I mean, to most people. Like to start with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe story in this franchise was probably the best way to go, due to its simplicity. Agreed. The elements that are just built within it, and then you can get into the more complex stuff. You know, as far as building the world, C.S. Lewis did that better than Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit's still one of my favorite books of all time, but C.S. Lewis's writing is the best in fantasy, I would say. I really think so, because again, it's just the words, for me to read that as a kid, and just like for the words to have like they almost feel like they have a rhythm to it. Like, for example, I know it's different, but like I just read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the original poem or whatever. And I feel like the reason that story works is because, and it's a poem given, that has like a rhythm, you know what I mean? And I almost feel like without it being a poem, the Narnia books always just had a rhythm, you know, like there was a rhythm to the writing. Like that just really worked so very well. It's just got a notification my internet connection was unstable. Hopefully that'll come back. But we should be good for now, folks. Anyway, C.S. Lewis just has again, there's a rhythm to the way he writes. And if you have not picked up the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe book, you need to do that like right now, because I don't care who you are. That first book is for everybody, and it takes kids that we can relate to and puts them in this world that maybe we can't relate to, but it's just written so well on the page, to where it's undeniably cool. That's the best way I could put it. It's undeniably cool. So on the
And
movies, yeah, go ahead.
I hate to actually there. Hate to actually you there, but The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the second book.
Wait, it's actually the second?
It is indeed. Chronologically, like the chronological order.
Chronological order, it's the second, but it's the first one he wrote for the series. That's
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, there's an order.
Trust you on that.
The original order, because the books that I had in my library were the original prints, and the original prints were done the way
we had the ones that I got from like the library and everything. That The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was always the same book.
I know the copy. That's the one I have, unfortunately, because I want the one I want the original prints, because the original way that the series was released. So I guess I'm teaching you something here. Is the order order that Disney was doing the movies when they were doing them. Like, so that was the original order. Disney was sticking with the original order of release, not
wasn't
story.
Like Silverchair, I think, was the next one, I want to say.
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
They were going to do a fourth, I think it was.
Well, that would have been Fox at the time, but apparently that's still in development. We'll see if it ever actually comes out, but
that'd be cool.
It gets greenlit, but
we'll see.
In development, which means a lot of different things. But it could mean that they have one sentence written in a script somewhere. It doesn't mean anything. Anyway, so for the entertainment side of it, outside of reading, I binged the BBC Narnia movies that they made for BBC, and that was that got me just so much more into the series, because that was I picked those up from my local library too. That just got me so much more into it, and because it was the first time, and you could watch those now and you'd be like, yeah, they're incredibly dated, but it has the BBC charm, but on the same hand, it's what do you call those miniseries, right, that they do for BBC? They did miniseries of each of them. Yeah. And so that was the first time I was able to like really, the world just felt more tangible to me, especially as a kid when I saw those. And that was probably the moment, like I even though I love the books, when I saw the BBC series, that was like, I got to go beyond just Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, which were the only two I read at the time. And that made me read, again, in the order that they had them in my library, the original Prince, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, just for clarification, did the BBC series, so did they do a whole mini series for each book, or was it like a mini series and each episode was a book?
They did a mini series and each series was a book. So yeah, it wasn't each episode. They did each series.
You broke up a little bit for me. Sorry,
I'm sorry. I said they did a mini series, but each series was a book.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you not seen those? They're really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to say, I think they adapted the first 5 in the original order. So they did all the way up until Silver Chair, because The Magician's Nephew is actually 4 in the original order. And when Fox had the rights,
that was always 1 for me.
Yeah, the Magician's Nephew. So they were gonna, for some reason, when Fox had the rights, they wanted to skip Magician's Nephew and go straight into Silver Chair. And I don't know why that is. Maybe they thought too many people already knew the Magician's Nephew, seeing as how it's like the first chronologically. The Silver Chair, I believe, is actually 5 in the original order. And I can't remember 6 in the original order, but I know the 7th one was Last Battle. That always came at the end. So
yes.
Regardless, that has to come at the end. And I can't explain to you my depression.
Horse and His Boy is the one we're forgetting.
Horse and His Boy was 6, right?
The Horse and His Boy.
Yeah. So the original order was Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Magician's Nephew, Silver Chair, Horse and His Boy, Boy and His Horse, Horse and His Boy. And then it was Last Battle. And
Horse and His Boy.
Right. And Last Battle,
okay.
I can't tell you my depression that we've never seen Last Battle made into a movie, because it would be absolutely incredible if they ever did it. That would be the Avengers Endgame of the Narnia series, and we never got to see it. So
yes.
I still hope that at some point they can get this up and running again. I think that lately we have definitely seen a lot more hype for this. Like I don't know about you, like going around the internet lately, I've been seeing people bring this franchise back up a lot as a movie, and it seems that the reception for Prince Caspian has gone up over the years for people, and they've kind of revisited it and rediscovered it. And there were some people I found on the internet that didn't even know it came out at the time.
Upon rewatch.
100%.
Prince Caspian, by the way, I think all three of these movies are very rewatchable, but Prince Caspian, if you guys have not seen Prince Caspian in a while, rewatch it.
Yes.
It's really great upon later watching, because I saw the movie in the theaters, like I want to say probably the weekend it came out. And I grew up with that movie. I thought I knew it. And then I watched it again with adult eyes, and I was like, this is kind of phenomenal. This is better than I ever thought it was.
Right.
That's getting ahead of ourselves. That's next week.
Yeah, and I do have probably more comments on Prince Caspian as a whole, because I have great stories surrounding that movie. And because I remember exactly where I was.
I saw all three of these in theaters, actually, now that I think about it.
Me too.
I think about it, I think I did.
Yeah, I was there for Prince Caspian opening night. I was a big fan of the book, and I mean, but let's get back to Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe for this podcast. No, this book is classic, and it's everybody should read this. I really believe that. Like, everybody, this should be required reading in school. You know, I don't know if it is yet, but it should be. It's really that good, and I do hope more people. I hope more people.
It's still very
these.
popularly read. Yeah, I think more people. It's definitely like it's checked out at libraries, at elementary and middle school libraries a lot. Yeah, still for sure.
Yeah, I want to know your Narnia experience though. Like, how'd you get introduced?
So mine is a lot more of the movies. So I was 7 when the first movie came out. So I remember being in school and kind of there being a lot of hype about it, because I don't know if like my teachers just really loved it or what was about it. I also did grow up quite religious, like quite Christian, and again, like the we haven't really talked about this, but like the undertones of Chronicles of Narnia,
there are a lot of parallels.
You could argue undertones, overtones, but they are very Christian based.
Yes,
they are there, and they are there purposefully. So it was just hype. I remember it being hyped up a lot when it was coming out. I remember then just going to see it in theaters, and like I kind of knew about it. I knew a little bit, but then watching that movie, it was my favorite thing as a kid was like I wanted to be transported by these movies. I wanted to just watch a movie and like escape into it,
right,
and go on the adventure. And so it was absolutely incredible. And I think, because again, as a kid, I think I was kind of on, like I was looking at it from the Pevensey children's point of view, maybe a little bit. And now as an adult, I can kind of look at it as the grand scheme of things. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of it. That's part of the point. That's why I argue also going back to like Harry Potter is really fun as an adult for that exact same reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then from that moment, I loved it, and then was obsessed with Prince Caspian. That's still my favorite, was my favorite. And then, yeah, it was pretty great. Kind of died out by the time Dawn Treader came out, but I still really liked it, and I still really like it to this day.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll point out too is, and
I own the books, haven't read them.
Oh yeah, they're great. You ever read the books? Really?
Excuse me. I know I haven't. Wow. I've started. I've read a chunk of The Magician's Nephew, because I did get the audiobooks for it. Because Kenneth Branagh actually does the audiobook for the first one. I think a different person does the audiobooks for each of them, I want to say. or at least the ones that like I had access to.
Yeah.
So like that kind of enticed me to read it as well. But I was really into it, but I just never finished it.
I'd honestly recommend looking up the original order and reading them that way, because
Mm-hmm.
that's honestly what got me so into the books, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, because
plus,
I own all of them. I have
yeah.
like a bundled, like it's just like a big book
Hmm.
with all of them in it. So I could skip around if I wanted to.
Yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
recommend doing the original order. That's what got me into it. And
Mm-hmm.
plus, you'll have that thing to it where you've seen the movies of the first three in the original order. And so you
Right.
know what happens. And so, like, I think
Right.
that'll make you more hooked, because the books definitely give you more detail on what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, in, as opposed to the movie. Um, by the way,
Yeah.
I wanted to, before this review, knowing we were doing it this week, track down a copy of the
Mm-hmm.
extended edition of this film, because it does exist. They only
Nice.
released it on DVD, unfortunately, and you
Uh-huh.
can't find it on Blu-ray yet. Ever. I don't know if they'll ever release it on Blu-ray.
You know, I just watch these all on Disney Plus, so I
Fair
got the
enough.
basic
Fair enough.
basic Disney version.
Fair enough. I
Mhm.
really, I've never seen the extended edition, and I'm anxious to check that out at some point. And I wanted to watch it beforehand, but I failed. So, yeah,
Nice.
there's that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I've just always had the softest spot for these movies.
Yeah,
I always thought
they're
that they were
great.
so good. And like another really interesting part, just real quick, about going back and watching these as an adult after loving them as a child, is again because there is quite an argument of the theology in the movie, of that, because I do think it is important to the movie, but my kind of thinking of it is, because the big thing is like Aslan is God, Jesus, whatever. That's the whole thing. He created Narnia. That's kind of the biggest comparison. And I think like while that is true, I think the movies, I don't mean, I assume for the books as well. But the thing about the movies is that it's not treated in a way where like you have land in order to be kind of like accepted into the world. Like people, it is like people who are close to him are treated better and stuff, and he protects them, but it's never kind of presented in a way that like, and it is like if you
Sure.
go against him you will be bad, but that's because of more reasons. I just
Yeah,
feel like it's less preachy. That's what I always appreciated about the
maybe.
movies, and what I really appreciate more growing up is that I see it and I see that it's all there, but to me at least it's not preaching at me too much, at least, which
Yeah,
is what I appreciate, and why I think it's more people who are like, you don't have to be a Christian to like these movies and to appreciate it.
yeah,
You know, you
yeah,
can totally, that can totally fly over your head and you'd still appreciate
for
it.
sure, for sure.
You know what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
preachiness, I just always appreciated that. It was always way more about the story and serving the
Oh
story,
yeah.
and of the Pevensey children and of Narnia, versus like we must worship him.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that to a degree. Yeah, because, well, when we get in depth, I'll talk more about Aslan and my feelings on him in the movies, and yeah, because I do have some thoughts on that. But
Nice. All right, so I think we're going to start off with the beginning of the movie, kind of. I think we'll talk about everything before we actually get into Narnia.
well, let me say this too, really quick,
Yeah,
since
go
we're gonna go
Absolutely.
that route with it. I just wanted to make sure, because I didn't really get to my first time seeing this one yet, so I want to make sure I mention that, because my sister and I had both read the book. I can't remember if she watched the BBC series with me, but she had to have. But I again, I definitely saw the BBC series before these movies were even made, and when we first heard that these movies were being made, and at that time we probably weren't reading like news articles. We probably just saw like a trailer and like we're just so hyped. That was the nice thing about back when you were a kid. You weren't reading the news and when movies were coming out and stuff. You just saw trailers and it was like such a surprise that was a thing. And it's like now we're just bitching about when's the Spider-Man trailer coming out, and kids don't care. They're like, they're gonna see it when they see it and shit, right?
Yeah.
So like and that's kind of how it was for this as a kid. Just saw the trailer out of nowhere, and I remember my sister and I saw it. We went to some movie together, and this trailer popped up, and her and I, our jaws were dropped because we had no idea this was going to be a thing. And we were like, we're seeing that together.
Yeah.
And we did, and it was just a special experience because my sister and I, growing up, we really connected on that first book because we were both such big fans of it. And I think she read them all too, if I'm not mistaken. Eventually, she got to all of them, but Yeah, she definitely did, because she was the one who was hyping up Last Battle for me before I even got around to it. But
Nice.
anyway, my point is just seeing this in the theater was so cool, and I remember coming out of that movie being like, that was a great adaptation of the book. Upon rewatch, how did I feel today?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you know. But we'll continue. Anyway, go ahead, jump into the beginning. I'm ready.
All right. So yeah, I was talking about the beginning. I think mainly what I want to say in this whole beginning part is how incredible these child actors are. Like they
Pretty
are
good.
these four main kids. I think they are phenomenal. And again, you could say it's because I was a child at their age, but I just have always seen them. And again, I really haven't seen these actors in many other things. But to me, like they just embody their characters so perfectly for me that like there's not a moment that I don't doubt their choices. You know what I mean? Every choice they make is just perfect to me because it's all fully believable into the
Yeah.
character. And I think all, and because the relationships are so good, and I know like they were friends when they were filming and they would hang out a lot, and that's like, you know, part of the reason why their chemistry was so good.
Right.
And I think like, the beginning is, I really think again it's setting up their relationships and getting that foundation down before we get into Narnia and the world building and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that would be as successful without these like four incredible kids just bouncing off each other.
Yeah. I think there's
I
an
love to
argument.
see it. I love them. I love all four of them.
I think that yes, this movie does a really good job developing the characters, and I think that it's really easy. You know, not having read the book, if you were just to go into this movie, you would have most of the character development that you would need.
True. Yes.
I could say the one child actor that bothers me in this movie is Edmund. Skander Keys, I believe, is the actor that plays him. He did bother me a bit in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that there were certain beats that he should have hit as Edmund that, as a book reader, I'm expecting. And it's honestly, he's probably just fine. It's just me as a book reader, like I picture Edmund a certain way. Not his look, but like his tone and his personality. Like when I saw this movie, even when I was a kid, I had some problems with Edmund in this, you know, because there was a certain like way that like I just imagined his personality to be. And I felt like this movie just missed it just ever so slightly. But as far as like the story of the characters, for the most part, they did get that down. I would say there's probably, yes, she's young, but there's probably an argument to be made that Lucy's a little bit camp in this one. Like, let's be real. But overall, she's adorable. You know, you like her. She's adorable.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not like trying to gripe too much.
That's her whole thing. She's supposed to be overly gentle and kind and just like, you know.
No, I'm just saying there's an argument
that's how
to be
I always
made.
Forgave it.
There's an argument to be made watching this as an adult that she might be a little bit camp, but I also find her to be kind of adorable, and I think she does her job. They
so
it's good. It's great casting. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not a casting problem. I just think maybe they directed her to maybe act a little bit more camp in this one. But other than that, like, yes, I think I, for some reason I know these actors' names except for.
So in the books, she's a bit more. I
don't know that Lucy is a bit more
the
grounded in the books.
She's a bit more serious in the book.
No, I don't think it's that. I don't know. I guess for me, like, when I'm thinking about me reading the books, like I wasn't really thinking about the tone of Lucy, like, because the reason is because when I was younger reading the books, given I haven't read these books in ages, but I do remember the Edmund story very well, and I know that I have problems with him till this day in this movie, because there is a certain tone you have to get with Edmund, and I think it missed it ever so slightly. But with Lucy, I feel like the thing is when I was a kid and reading the book, I wasn't thinking too far ahead about it, because with her, she was also a child, you know what I mean? So when I saw this movie as a kid, I probably wasn't thinking about it as much, because I was probably her age, you know, or close to it when I was reading the book. With Edmund, Edmund was probably older than me when I was younger. So with Edmund, to me, there's a noticeable difference. Like, because in the book, he was a much stronger presence, like, as a personality. So I'm not saying they miscast with
Yeah.
Edmund, but I think that the director didn't quite understand, at least for me. I'm just saying, for me, what I think Edmund should have been in this movie, and I think he just missed it ever so slightly. There are parts of it where it's like, that's okay, that's very Edmund. Like, I could pick out certain moments where it's like, that's very Edmund, like he got it there. But then there's other moments where it's like, that's not really Edmund, you know. And
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with agreeing, like I know what you're saying, but it's because I feel like in the second Prince Caspian, he becomes a bit more of a presence in his personality. I feel like
sure,
becomes
for
a bit
sure,
more defined.
for sure.
So I was
Yeah,
gonna say that for next week, but like, so do you feel like in the second movie they're a little better, because Lucy as
yeah.
well? Lucy
Oh
becomes a
yeah,
little
I
less
was
of like,
gonna say.
I'm a little girl, you know, and becomes more of like a person.
I was
You
gonna
know?
save that for the next one too, but
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
go ahead and say right now, yeah, I think that when once I saw Prince Caspian, everybody
Yeah.
nailed their characters. They all felt more comfortable in the roles.
Uh-huh.
But Susan and Peter, fantastic. You know, like, there's really
Great
no
from the
gripe at
start.
all with
Yeah.
those two. And again, I don't even really have a gripe with Lucy. I'm just saying, I think that as an adult watching this, there can be an argument that she's a little camp, but just a little camp. But it's fine. It's like, it feels like Lucy. Here's my problem with Edmund, and I'll say it throughout this whole movie, because just to preface it, because I'll probably bring up this complaint a few times. My biggest problem with Edmund is the fact that in the book, when you're reading the book, the C.S. Lewis really dives into Edmund's mind and everything that's going on in every moment, almost, with him. And it really builds really well to his ultimate betrayal. So I felt like in movie form, and I understand it had to be difficult, you know, because this is a really solid adaptation overall. And I feel like it probably was difficult for Andrew Adamson to figure out how he was going to translate Edmund's internal struggles onto the screen. But when you read the book, you just get it a lot more. And so for me, I feel like that was the missing component to the Edmund character in the movie, is because when you're reading the book, there's a lot more going through his mind that makes you buy into his ultimate betrayal later. You know, it's this movie makes it a little bit more as simple, in my opinion, as just this witch comes up with some candy and he just falls for it. And that's not really Edmund to me. Edmund is a lot more complex in the book, you know? And I understand it's hard.
And that's always been a complaint of a lot. Yeah. That's been a big complaint of people like me who have only know the movies and haven't read the book. It's been like, it's always been like, you're going to tell me this kid sold his whole family out for some Turkish delight. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and
it just, again, there's so much to put in a movie. It's, again, like, what do you do? Voiceover? Do you have internal moments with Edmund? Like,
yeah,
it's a hard thing to do.
I don't remember how I was making the connection when I was reading the book, but I just remember, like, Turkish Delight, and again, I haven't read the book, so I can't tell you, but I just remember, like, reading Turkish Delight in my mind. Even as a kid, I was like, that's kind of brilliant, because I was making a connection of Turkish Delight and like why that meant a little bit more to him than just it being Turkish Delight. Because I believe somebody's going to correct me. I know that this is not the parallel that I was drawing probably, but I believe it has something to do with his father. Like, his father would bring him Turkish Delight or something like that. It's something to do with that. A lot of his internal struggle definitely has to do with the relationship with the parents, and you definitely see it on surface level, you know, like that there's a struggle there, but it's not
and that's the
they don't dive into
that's
it
the
like
thing,
I
especially
wanted.
in the first kind of bit. And that's like kind of the first part of the movie is again a lot of it's kind of the same thing, like the Peter Pan kind of does the same thing, where everything that happens in the magical land is something relevant to what's going on in our real world, in our real life.
Yeah, you'll have to read the book and correct me on that, but maybe sometime soon. But you know, it's
someone might.
Because like there is a parallel that I drew, I remember, with the Turkish Delight. Like they definitely like make some sort of like there's a symbolism to it. You know what I mean? There's a symbolism to Turkish delight in that moment,
Right.
to where it like connects back to something else. Which that's a MacGuffin problem, I guess, not an Edmund problem more than anything. But my point is like to not see the internal struggles, in my opinion, that were described in that book on the screen is a misstep, in my opinion, because it's just, and even watching it today, I was like, man, it really does feel like on surface level, like he sold his family out for candy. I think like as adults, we can think more into it and stuff, you know, but if you're watching this as a kid, I'm not trying to like say that this was the intention, but that does send kind of a bad message at first, you know, like it's kind of like it's a weird way. It's a weird message at first. Obviously it gets redeemed later.
It's a weird thing,
but it is a weird thing for kids to watch because and I just feel like that was a point that was missed in the book a little bit. Maybe the extended cut has all that. I don't know. I need to see it. I'm dying to see the extended edition to see what they cut from the movie. But that was one thing that I felt like was missed. But I'm done griping on the Turkish delight. We can move on.
Nice. All right, so moving on. I'm gonna clump a big chunk of things together here at the beginning. Basically everything before the whole crew gets into Narnia. So we have Lucy then goes in, finds the wardrobe. And you've seen the movie, you know what happens before. I'm like, I kind of want to explain everything, but if you haven't seen the movie, what are you doing here? It's incredible. It's on Disney Plus. Go watch it right now.
Spoiler talk, folks.
It's a spoiler talk, folks. We're fast forwarding to when Lucy, during the hide and seek game, finds the wardrobe, meets Mr. Tumnus, played wonderfully by James McAvoy, and it's wonderful. Goes back, James McAvoy goes, and then she goes back through. No one believes her. She comes back, goes through the whole thing. Edmund comes after her, and then that's where he meets, like we've been talking about, the White Witch. The whole Turkish delight thing goes down, and then Mr. Tumnus ends up sending a message that Lucy is there. Lucy comes back, gets Peter and Susan. The whole crew comes out. What else you got? Anything up until that point?
No,
I don't have much notes on this point.
No, I have some comments here for sure, because when I saw this as a kid, the whole tone of the movie as a kid threw me off, because I was not expecting it to be as, especially when you've read the book, because it feels, when you've read the book, and I'm not saying the movie is messy or anything, because I actually think watching it today, I thought it was executed very well getting up to this point. Like it's a great adaptation of all that. But when I'm watching it as a kid,
it's got good flow. That's the universal word.
Yeah. As a kid coming fresh off the book, I remember the tone of it felt very rushed. I was like, what's happening here? We're going right to the wardrobe so soon, you know, like they do good character development and everything, but like it was just, and like the quick pace of like when they play the old music and all that, it's like it was so wild to me. I was like, this is really bonkers as a kid, and I didn't really expect it to be that.
And it's the thing too that when Lucy gets there, when she first walks through the wardrobe, she's not really like surprised that much. Like she does like one double take, and then she's like, cool, I'm here. And it's just cool, kind of cool with everything.
I was actually okay with that though, because it's that way in the book too. Like she's not shocked. In the book, she's like,
because like in Harry Potter, there's some time where he's like sitting with it, understanding what's going on, but Lucy's like, nope, we're in here now.
Which it's like that in the book. I think that C.S. Lewis wanted to translate like with the child imagination, like they'll just believe anything's real kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think that's what the translation was supposed to be.
To me, I always thought too, it's the fact that and for me, it's the fact that like the Pevensey children were always supposed to be there. That's a place like they were meant to be. She feels connected there. She didn't feel scared or anything.
It's her fate.
So why would she be kind of afraid? You know?
Right, it's her fate. So as a kid, I was watching this and I was like, I felt like it was extremely rushed. I'm like, I even remember kind of turning to my sister at the time being like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Because it felt very like they were kind of, you know, speeding through this thing. And then she gets into Narnia, and you see Narnia, and Mr. Tumnus comes up. And as a kid, that was the moment I fell in love, because I saw that, and I was like, that's Mr. Tumnus come to life. When I saw James McAvoy in that character, like, as a kid, I was, like, blown away, because I was like...
That was incredible.
He brought that character...
Same.
Because I'll tell you something, the BBC series, I liked it as a kid, but they sucked when it came to Mr. Tumnus. They did not get that character right at all in the BBC.
Really?
Oh my god, they screwed him up so bad, in my opinion. They missed
Wow.
they missed the charm to him. You know what I mean? Whatever actor they picked for the BBC series. And it's funny, I even rewatched some clips like a couple months ago to try to, take a trip down memory lane. And it made me remember how bad Mr. Tumnus was in that series. And I was like, God, they screwed him up. This movie, they James McAvoy nailed this character. This is the exactly it jumped off the page. You know what I mean? It jumped straight off the page, and every quality of Mr. Tumnus that I was wanting from that BBC series as a kid, I got from him here. And this is the moment I fell in love with this movie. I finally fell in love with it as a movie as a kid, and like today again when I was watching, I was like, yeah, Mr. Tumnus, he's got a soft spot in my heart, and the way that McAvoy played him, I can't thank him enough for giving me this performance, because it might not seem like a lot on surface, but when you read the book and McAvoy's on the screen just embodying, all the qualities of this very likable character and a fan favorite of everybody's, it does mean a lot. It feels subtle when you're watching it as a movie, maybe, but it means a lot for the book readers, and McAvoy just knew how to.
Oh no, I felt it, at least. Yeah. I felt it. That like, this is an important person. Like, it felt similar to kind of like when Harry meets Hagrid.
Yeah.
To compare back to Harry Potter again, but you're like, this just feels like we're meeting someone very special.
And I love can I mention, as an adult, through the adult eyes, I do love the cinematography here. I like the snow setting. I love the lamp. I love how they did all that.
It's pretty good.
It looks like how I imagined Narnia, And that was the other thing I wanted to say about it too, is when I was a kid, I saw Narnia come to life, and that was a big deal, because Narnia looks how it was described in the book. They nailed that in this movie. That's another thing that makes it so good, is that just Narnia was nailed. It's everything I imagined it being, almost no differences from the way that C.S. Lewis wrote it and how they actually ended up portraying the world. It feels like Narnia. So. We can move on. Sorry. I was done with my thing here.
And you're good. Oh, sorry. It froze for a second.
Oh, you're good.
Wasn't sure. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. So now moving on. So now all four Pevensies, all in Narnia. We have them meeting the beavers. That scene is great. I always like that. I love the beavers. We love the beavers. And then Edmund runs off. We have to go get Edmund. And then we have them running away, we think, from the White Witch, but it's not. It's Santa Claus, Father Christmas. I always also really like that, because this always I remember as a Christmas movie in my head. So it's always kind of fun.
It did have a December release, if I remember right.
Santa comes up. It did.
I think so. Anyway,
I remember I did.
Yeah, I remember it being cold out.
But then we have Father Christmas. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go with Father Christmas. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah, Father Christmas giving them all of their presents, all of their things. So as it's a sword for Peter, and like a shield, and then Susan gets her arrows, and then Lucy gets the dagger and the healing thing. Oh, and Susan gets the horn too, right? And then Edmund also gets a sword.
Yeah.
And then we have them going back, and we gotta get Edmund back from the White Witch. We do, and I have a blank in my head, actually. I have notes written down too, but I have a blank in my head. So we save Edmund, and then what happens in between that and getting to Aslan's camp? That's where I was gonna stop. But there's a blank in there. I feel like something else happens.
Can I say something about Santa?
100%.
Okay. While you're thinking about that, because I wanted
everything up till there.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, okay. Like I said, I kind of made the short comment. Like, I love the Beavers. I think the Beavers are great. I like the voice actors they chose to play them. The wolves in this movie, by the way, definitely look dated. And I mean, they're great, but they're dated. I mean, the effects are dated. Let's be honest now. They didn't hold up. Yeah. And that was another thing that bugged me watching this one. It's like the effects really don't hold up anymore. They're some of them. I mean, there's the ice scene. There's evident green screen all over the place. It's wild. I mean, it's so blatant and evident. But That said, I again,
I think that's what I was forgetting. I was forgetting the wolves, because they run away from the wolves, right? And they have to go through like
this is before Santa
a whole
too.
thing.
No,
And
this is
that's
after
how,
Santa,
yes.
because he gets the sword
That
first.
is before Santa.
But he gets the
Yes.
sword, so it's after Santa. The wolves are after Santa.
Yes.
So okay, well, let me talk about
The
Santa.
one
then.
I'm thinking of. Don't they have to run out of the They have to run out of the beaver's house earlier, I think, is what I'm thinking of.
Oh, right.
Or they have to like run under
when the wolves
and
circle
stuff.
them and everything. When the wolves
house.
circle them around, and that's a good
earlier.
scene.
But this is later when they're getting Edmund out.
And then you have that one wolf who's trying to help the fox. I'm sorry, it's like a fox who's trying to help him out.
Yes,
that guy.
The fox.
Great character, by the way.
Great character.
And
we love him. Yes.
Anyway, so Santa, I gotta tell the audience something. Like, I'm an adult. I know the real deal and everything. Like, I know what's going on. But I have a soft spot in my heart for Santa Claus mythology. Like, you put that in your movie, and there's just a soft spot in my heart. It makes me emotional every time I see this scene.
I mean, it's Santa.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, it meant so much to me, too. And by the way, like, I think the BBC series was very well intentioned when they did the Santa stuff. But make no mistake about it, that Santa in the BBC series scared the shit out of me. Like, I think they were well-intentioned, but they got a scary-looking Santa. This movie understands it. Like, this movie understood what that scene was supposed to be and what it was in the book. And every time I see the Santa scene, I get emotional in my mind. You know, because, like, it takes me back to being a child, you know, and honestly, the Santa's so sweet. You know, you love the Santa Claus. He's Father Christmas.
Yeah.
He embodies Father Christmas. So
he is, yes.
I love this scene with Santa. Like, love it. Like, I can't even tell you how much I love it. It's the music of it, the way they just captured the tone so well. So great stuff. Great stuff. And then we have the second wolf scene, Sammy. That's where we were going next. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's where we were at. That's when we escape Edmund from the White Witch. Right. Correct?
No, the second wolf scene I'm thinking of is when they were on the ice. And he put the sword in the ice.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. That is before. Yes, that is what I forgot. Because they're walking on they get Edmund out. They're all walking on the thing toward wherever. Yes. And then after that is when they get to Aslan's camp.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I remember.
Love that scene. I totally forgot about that.
Oh, it's
and
so
then you
epic.
Said it, and I was like, how did I forget about it? Because it's true with the sword and the
I mean, it's like, again, like, there's evident green screen all around when you're watching it now. It's the effects
very
really
evident green screen.
I do wish, that's one gripe going back, I do wish they used more location.
Even more than the animals, it's the green screen for me.
Yeah, I do wish that, I agree. I do wish they used more location when they shot this. You know, they used a lot less location than I think that they probably should have, because like it translates, like when you compare this to like Lord of the Rings, even though they are both done in New Zealand, like look at Lord of the Rings and then put it up next to this. Like, Lord of the Rings holds up so much better in terms of its look, because they definitely used a lot less practical effects on this one. So I get it. Disney had the money. They wanted to test it, you know, and see if they can make the effects work. And if they didn't, we wouldn't have had the movies we had today. So you always got to constantly experiment, but to improve. But
true.
I get that. Don't get me wrong, but they just, it still bothers me in this one. They just look incredibly dated. I'll let you know on Prince Caspian if I feel the same, because you know, I'm very scared. I'm gonna put on
I feel like they're pretty all right.
I feel like they are, but I'm scared I'm going to put it on and feel the same way, because like I remember that movie being a lot more beautiful.
They might be a little on par now that I'm thinking about it.
Maybe.
But now that I'm sitting here thinking about some shots, I'm like, they might be kind of similar.
Who knows?
Similar than I would like to think.
Either way, the scene is epic. And I think a lot of what makes it is the characters. You're so attached to them at this point. And I remember sitting in the theater and because this wasn't really like this is a thing in the book, it's a scene in the book, but like this is one of those things where it's like this works better visually than reading it, because like just seeing like Peter come up with the sword and on the ice, you know, is really super cool. Like it was described in the book, but it's better visually, you know. they definitely made it work in the movie a lot better. So that was cool, extremely epic. It's the moment in this movie where you're like, okay, I'm really getting into this, you know, because it's the action's really starting up, and you're really, it's the first big action scene, you know, so it's cool.
100% totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, next thing. So then we have, after that, we all arrive to Aslan's camp, but this is the first time we see Aslan, voiced by Liam Neeson, coming out, declares, I forget exactly what he says. You can say in a moment, probably remember.
I don't actually.
But then we have I don't remember what he says during this moment, but then we have
it's cool, though.
A bit of like training. It's cool though. It's cool. Whatever he says is cool.
It's
and
awesome.
You're like, that's God right there, man. That is God or Jesus, either one. It's him. And then we have a bit of everybody trains for a little bit. And then we get word that the White Witch is coming into camp, and she declares that she's owed Edmund's life. Aslan then takes her privately. They have a conversation, and we don't know this yet, but Aslan trades his life for Edmund's, and that he will die in Edmund's place.
Yes, they agree that's the deal that's made.
They come out. That is the deal. Yes, but we don't know that yet.
No, we don't.
But then they both, read it. Yes, those of us who didn't read the book, we didn't know this yet.
Yeah,
we were shook in about 2 seconds. We were shook.
Oh yeah.
Then they come out. They say Edmund's been cleared. It's all good. And then later that night, Lucy and Susan see Aslan walking out in the woods, and he also, I forget what they say there. This is a really great conversation that they have. It's really sweet and sad, where Susan and Lucy can kind of tell something is going to happen, but they don't know what, and Aslan just like obviously can't tell them, but wants the company. I think he says something like that. He says something like, I'd like the company, like you can walk with me if you want,
which I love that.
But then eventually, I love that again. Yeah, that was incredible. But then eventually they leave him. He keeps walking. And then he goes into this always scared the shit out of me as a kid, because this is like a cult ceremony going. This is a sacrificial cult, like Aztec something ancient ritual going down. There's this huge stone table, and the White Witch is up there, and everybody around her is cheering her. It's dead of night, fires going everywhere. They tie Aslan down, and they cut all of his fur off. And they're like cheering about it, throwing it around, and then they throw him up on the table, and he is sacrificed, and it is so sad. And I was shook. All right, those of us, we were pretty shook at this moment. Never forget it. And then after that, then Lucy and Susan eventually go to see him after everyone else has left. They all go plan to invade Aslan's camp, and they kind of cry over his body. And then the White Witch starts invading. Peter and Edmund start fighting back. It's crazy times. And then eventually, guess what? Because Aslan is Jesus, hint, hint, the stone table cracks and Aslan is resurrected. Woo! And everything is fun. And he goes to fight. And that's where I'll stop. And we'll talk about the last kind of the real big parts of the third act next, but everything else leading up to that, like all of your Aslan thoughts, stone table, all of that, what you got? Now's the time.
Time. So first of all, I know it's the cool thing to hate Liam Neeson these days, but Liam Neeson is Aslan. I don't care what you say. It's
really good. He does a really good job.
He brings the presence that you need, like he really does, and like in the voice, like, and he brought it to life in such a way that, again, this is another example of like where they just understood the source material, you know, because Aslan, which Aslan honestly wasn't terrible in the BBC series. Thank God. He wasn't awful. The effects on Aslan were bad in the BBC series, but the guy who voiced him didn't do a bad job. But Liam Neeson just took it to a whole new level. Like, let's be real. Like, he became that character. And it's one of those voice efforts that's just unforgettable. And I think that, you know, there is a presence to Aslan in this movie, religious parallels aside. He feels godlike, you know, he really does in a way. Like he feels like, you see Aslan in this movie and you're like, this is an important person and we should not cross this man. You know, and
Yeah.
there's something to that there's something
But
to be said
he
about
gives
that.
you reason to,
Yeah.
is the thing.
Yeah.
It's the thing that he doesn't just, he's not like, because the thing is, the White Witch kind of shows up and she's like, you must obey me, and if you don't, I will just kill you. But with Aslan, it's like, no, he gives you reasons to respect him, and like talks to people and offers you wisdom and gives you things that you need and helps you, and you know, that's why that's one of the biggest things I love about Aslan.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. He's very I'm trying to think of a way to put it. He feels like royalty, you know what I mean? Like in a way, but like he's good royalty, you know?
But like worthy of it.
Yeah. When you're around Aslan, like you're in good company in that moment. But to your resurrection point, I blame this fucking story for people all the time now wanting characters who die to come back. But it works here because you have that.
It all started here. Yeah.
But you have the parallel here. Like, this symbolizes something, like you were saying. It's kind of like, because Aslan is Jesus. It's based on that, around that mythology.
And he's literally dying for Edmund's sins, you know?
It's based on that.
That's the whole idea. He died for someone else, so he was rewarded and given a second life, or that's the whole idea.
Right. So that works here. You know what I mean? And I don't think that should mean that we have to get that every time and shit now. And I blame this for that, because it gave us that hope. But anyway, that aside, the scene is really good.
You're not all Jesus.
Yes,
not all of your characters are Jesus.
Yes, Captain America got old and died. Everybody deal with it. He's not on Mars. But
sometimes people get old and die. I'm sorry. I don't know if you knew this. Yes. Sometimes people just get old and they die.
Yes.
Sorry. 100%. My apologies.
Yeah. And sometimes they just, force project themselves halfway across the galaxy. But anyway,
sometimes they force project themselves off the galaxy. Sometimes they walk through a wardrobe and they live forever. Sometimes they get resurrected. Like, let people live. Different people do different things, right?
100%. And I think, anyway, this is done so well though. All this stuff is really good. It's heartbreaking, when you see the reaction of Susan and Lucy, and
it's traumatizing. And it's a lot.
I have so many problems with like children's things that they do now, because they don't add this kind of stake to it anymore. They don't put children through this type of trial anymore. Like, I'll even go back to like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, for example. Like, they put those kids through shit, like nobody does that anymore in movies, and it's irritating. Like, Stranger Things might be the last thing that did that really well. Cobra Kai, but Cobra Kai's the other one. But either way, like those are TV shows though, like movies don't.
But like
do
these
anymore.
Big adventure type traumatic things anymore.
Right. Like, I don't know why everybody's so afraid to like show that kids go through trauma too, in movies. And it feels like
because
we're missing
like, what
this.
Do you think kids not go through trauma?
Yeah.
You think kids can't handle some trauma?
Yeah.
Have you not seen children?
Yeah, I thought a lot about that when I was watching this today. Like, I really did. I was like, this is why it works. It's like they don't care to they didn't seem to like Disney didn't seem so concerned about like the image that they had, because they put kids through trauma, and like now they would,
And to its credit, that's part of, for me at least, why these movies were so cool, because it was kids. Like, it was really, because I also I loved Pirates of the Caribbean and The Mummy and stuff. Those were my other favorite like big action adventure franchises at the time. And like, I loved it, but they were all adults. Like, it was adults doing this stuff. So it was so cool to be like, no, these are kids doing these things. People my age doing this.
100%.
That was why it was cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And just, this movie just, I don't know, man. It just has style. You know what I mean? This movie has style. And like, panache.
It really does.
Like, I don't know how else to explain it. That's what I was thinking about when
panache.
I was watching it today. Like, it just has something that we just don't have in a lot of movies anymore.
It's got flair.
It does.
Yeah.
Definitely has flair. Makes me think of Office Space.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen that, but great flick. Anyway, but
I've seen parts of it. I think I've seen maybe like 20 minutes.
There's a whole thing with flair. But
okay.
Yeah, anyway.
Oh, is it the thing with like
her flair? Yeah.
There, someone works at like a restaurant.
Jennifer Aniston, right?
And they put like buttons. Right. Jennifer Aniston put like buttons all over her uniform, right? Yeah. And they're like, you need to add flair.
Yeah. And she flips off her boss. And how's that for flair?
Yes.
How's that for flair?
I remember this.
Love that scene.
Yes.
But anyway, back to this movie, which has nothing to do with Office Space. I love the when the stone cracks. Looks so cool. There's something symbolic in that, you know what I mean? Like, not religiously,
like,
but
it
like,
happens right at daybreak, like right when the sun comes out. So there's like a sunbeam going down. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And then you know, he's like, come on, we're gonna go unfreeze people who've been frozen or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I'll be honest, I kind of had a problem
on their face.
I had a slight problem with this. I felt like they like, I get that, like, they made Aslan like godlike in this movie, but I did feel like in the book they kind of explained this a little bit better, like what he was actually doing. So watching the movie, like, I always kind of like had a little issue with it, but it's not like the worst thing in the world or anything. It's just like, yeah, they kind of explained that so much better in the book than just like, come on, let's go get people, you know. In the book, it's not so glazed over, right. You know what I mean? Like, Lucy and like, if I'm not mistaken, Lucy and Susan were like asking questions about it, and you know, like, not everything has to be exposition or anything, but I would have liked a little curiosity out of Lucy and Susan in that moment, you know, just a little bit. But it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. I can live with it. It's just every time I watch it, it throws me off a little bit that they just like, all right, we're gonna go get the people, you know. But when they actually do get there, I'm cool, because like, her reaction to seeing like Mr. Tumnus made of stone is like really something, you know. So like, I'm cool with that.
It's really great.
Like, it's good. It's good stuff. And like, and then when Aslan brings him back to life, it's such an emotional moment, you know. And the fact that like Lucy has such a big heart that she can like still care for this man who sold her ass out is a big thing, you know. It's a big thing to say. It's a big thing for the character. It says a lot about her as a character. And I just love their relationship, and this movie just nails that, you know. It nails their relationship together, to Mr. Tumnus and Lucy. It's great. It's great. So I love that. Yeah. But then we can get into the battle, I guess, if you have no more on that.
No, that's kind of all I got on that. So we move into this great battle, which, first of all, I have just always loved. So the White Witch comes rolling up, and she is wearing, I didn't notice this until like a recent rewatch, but like, she is draped in like what I think is Aslan's fur. I never put that two and two together. I knew she was like in like a fur thing, but I never clicked. I was like, holy shit. That's explained. I'm like, book. That's a badass bitch.
Yeah.
That's a badass bitch.
It's in the book.
Like, not in a good way, because she's evil, but like, she wore the skin of her enemy that she just murdered, their leader, to this battle.
Yeah.
Like, we could never. Like, that was the mic drop moment. That was a boss ass bitch.
Yeah, that's in the book. They explain that.
I always loved that. I always loved that costume.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I always loved that costume, even when I was a kid. I was like, she's evil, but she looks fabulous.
Yeah.
We never put that together.
Yeah. And by the way, just because that was in the book and not in the movie, I could genuinely see on that one why Disney was a little hesitant to explain that was Aslan's fur. That one I can give them a pass. I'm like, I understand.
They'll
let
us figure it out as adults.
Yeah, I was like, I understand why they might have been a little hesitant on that one. You know. I mean, it's a little rough.
Like, the kids will figure it out eventually. Yeah. We don't need to spell it out for them. They'll know. The ones who need to know will know. That's fine.
I'm good with that ambiguity.
But yeah, love that. So this whole battle goes down. Yeah, I was fine with that. Yes, then we have the whole big kind of final battle goes down. It's freaking epic. Everybody's fighting. Eventually, Aslan, Susan, and Lucy, everybody who's like petrified, come back and help them. And then they eventually win. White Witch is defeated, and Lucy gets to go around. And I always love that she goes around and cures everybody with the like a cure thing that she got from Santa Claus earlier in the movie. And it's fucking beautiful. And Aslan and Narnia is Aslan's again, and it's a beautiful time. And then we flash forward to a little bit later when the siblings are now all being crowned as kings and queens of Narnia, which again, this is epic. Like every single child who doesn't want to be named a king and queen of a magical land. Like this scene for every child, I feel like was absolutely everything. And it's important that they're kids, I think, in this moment as well. But I always love that. It's beautiful. The beavers and Mr. Tumnus get to present them with their crowns. It's gorgeous. And then we fast forward even more to Pevensey children, now full-grown adults, been ruling Narnia for, I don't know, hundreds of years or something like that, a very, very long time. And they've run into the lamppost from the very beginning and end up walking back into the wardrobe, which again, for those of us who didn't read the book, this moment was a lot. This was the plot twist of the year. For all of us who had no idea that was going to happen. And they walk back in their childhood selves like they were at the beginning of the movie, and no time, like 10 minutes in the real world has passed, and the professor whose home they're staying at comes in, like gives them the wink like, how is Narnia, you know? And it ends and it's beautiful. I mean, like that was like one of the bigger plot twists as a child that really impacted me, that I was like, you're just gonna drop this bomb and then the movie ended. It was insane, but I loved it. And even now as an adult, I think it's a beautiful ending. I love it so much. I again don't have much more notes other than it is magical, adventurous, and I love it.
I got some notes. Okay, so first of all, the battle. Wow, I mean, this is a Braveheart, Lord of the Rings scale battle, and like, I guess it's so surprising when you see it in the movie, because I'll say this about the book: it's not a bad thing that they did this in the movie. I think it's a good choice, but in the book, it's crazy when I was seeing it as a kid, because the book isn't so actiony. You know what I mean? Like, there's action in the book. They definitely have a battle, but it's not so grand scale in the book. It doesn't feel that way anyway, the way it reads off the page. So for them to do it in the movie, and I understood it too, because they were banking off Lord of the Rings at the time. You know, they were like, Lord of the Rings did this and it works. It's really trendy right now. We should do something like that too. I actually think it was a big risk for Disney, honestly, to try to do one of these like grand scale, you know, medieval type battles, you know, because we hadn't really seen that in a Disney film before. So that was a big risk on their part, but I'm glad that they took it. And this battle is really fun to watch. It's one of the, if not the best part in the movie. Edmund, let's talk about Edmund though. Because my sister and I'm sorry to this poor kid, but my sister and I laughed in the theater when he went, on his way down. And it still makes me laugh till this day. It's poor. It's poor. I'm sorry. Like, I hate to say it, but it's poor. And it upsets me a little bit till this day, because that scene should have had a much bigger emotional impact than they executed it in the movie. The book gave that scene a much bigger impact when he died, quote unquote died. Well, he did die. Lucy, you know, used her shit and he came back to life, but yeah, and like, that should have been done better. Like, let's be real. They really didn't give that the impact that they did.
Definitely could have.
Yeah, the book just and when you're reading that in the book, like, you're in tears, because you're like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, he was redeemed and then he died. But even though there was that, which was piss poor again, when Peter turns around and he's going for the witch, holy shit, that is great. That is so great when he makes the turn to go for her. Oh, so good, and he plays that so well in the movie. Like, that was amazing, and it's epic, and it feels like I'm watching an actual epic, you know what I mean? Like, it does, like, it feels that way. And it's amazing. I love that scene. And so while you didn't have the emotional impact of Edmund's dying because it was executed poorly, you kind of got a little bit back, right after that, when Peter saw him die, and he turns around and he's like, I'm going for that bitch, and boy, does he ever. And it's so good. It is so good. And Mike, every time I see that, my adrenaline goes up a little bit, because it's really it's the score. By the way, the score is something we got to point out in this movie, because the score is perfect throughout this movie.
Oh my gosh,
it's a great score. I don't know who did it, but it's phenomenal. I want to say it's the same person that did Bridge to Terabithia for some reason, but
Carter Burrell, I want to say, is my guess.
Anyway, phenomenal score.
I'm looking it up.
And without that score, the battle wouldn't have been impactful.
Oh, nope. Harry Gregson Williams.
That's right. And without Harry Gregson Williams' score, the battle just doesn't work as well as it does. The action is good. It's shot well. It's not the best action I've ever seen. I mean, I would still argue that Lord of the Rings and Braveheart did it better than this. So it's not quite on that level, but it's still really, really good. And it feels big, and it's on a grand scale. And I still really liked it. And I like seeing all the different mythical creatures of Narnia, fighting in this battle. And I think that was cool too, because that's kind of world building.
Hell yeah.
In a big way, where you get to see so many different elements of this world.
It is.
It's very cool. And there were parts where they did focus in on, one-on-one combat from time to time. And it did make the world feel a lot more expansive, and that's what I loved about the movie, is because the book didn't really have all that, like the book had a battle, but it wouldn't be like, and now a centaur is gonna fight another beast, and it's like, it didn't like go into detail on like all the different creatures that were around, you know what I mean? Not the way that the movie did.
Right.
And so that's one thing I'll hand the movie, is they definitely stepped up the action. And I think that it was a good move. I think that's why this movie smashed in the box office, like when it came out, is because in the trailers, I remember they did show this was going to be like a grand scale battle movie, and Lord of the Rings was really hot at the time for doing the same thing. So it works. It's great. It was a good move business wise, and it still holds up in the movie for the most part. And without it, I don't know what movie this would be. And then to the point of the ending actually itself, that's the other great thing about this movie, is you leave it with something to think about. Like, it's, if you hadn't read the book, you're leaving this movie with a lot of thought. And something that's gonna, it's a conversation starter, because you see this movie with your buddy, you guys are going to talk about that. You're going to be like, whoa, that's mind blowing that they were like, this is a stoner movie. It's like, whoa, man, it's mind blowing. They were like 40 years old, and, they went in and now they're kids again. What the fuck, but no,
which, let me say, they did quite a real, I remember watching it thinking that they did a good job casting their older selves.
They did.
But like, now that the cast is not as old, but they are older, and like you look at comparisons, like they really did a good job. Like, look at them now and look at the people who played them as adults, like pretty similar. Peter and Lucy especially, like they look very similar.
I thought they did well with that too. That was the other thing. Like, I remember seeing it even as a kid and thinking like, oh wow, they actually feels like the older versions of these kids. And that was something, but by the way, as a kid, I was even kind of nervous about that. My sister and I had like so many conversations before going into the movie, because we were talking about like, you think they'll actually do this and do that, and you know what I mean, and like, because like there were things like we just weren't sure that the movie was gonna do, because at the time we were smart enough to understand that book to movie adaptations aren't always similar. We'd read Harry Potter at the time, so we knew that there were always going to be differences.
2005,
so at that point, we understood that book to movie adaptations were always different from one another. So we were just curious about what they were actually going to do here. And that's the thing I'll say in closing on this is, it's a phenomenal adaptation of the book. Like, it is. It's the best adaptation of the book. Like, if you want to watch the BBC series, you kind of get a little more detail from time to time. But this, to do this in 2.5 hours and do, well, is this movie like 2.5 hours? I don't even think it's that. I think it's like 2
It
hours
is,
15.
yeah. It's like 2:20.
2:20. Okay, fair enough.
I want to say it's like 2:20 something.
Sure.
2:23 maybe.
Right.
Like
So to do that in 2.5 hours is still very good, you know, because they got I feel like they got the important stuff, you know. There's some things, sure, I griped a lot of the Edmund character. I think the execution didn't go as well as it could have, but I think they got the basics, and the basics are here, and they understood it, and I think that's, again, another reason it was such a smash at the box office too, is because it pleased the book readers at the time. I remember, like, talking to my friends who had also read the book at school, and they were really happy. My sister and I were thrilled, you know, walking out of this. We were like, they did a great job, you know. Her and I were both like, that was better than we thought, you know, because we were nervous, you know, we were nervous. We were big fans of the source material. We didn't know, you know, we didn't know if it was going to hold up and or live up to it. And it did in so many ways. Yeah, that there were just so many, I think her and I both were like, yeah, Edmund maybe could have been better, but the rest of the movie was cool, you know. So that was like, you know, the one thing. That was the one thing. The fact that was the one thing is a compliment, I think, because there's really nothing else I really have to nitpick. Again, seeing it as an adult, Lucy might be a little camp from time to time for my taste, and the effects are a little bit dated. But other than that, there you go. Those are my gripes, and I think that's a good thing. It's held up pretty well, for the most part, and I'm excited to talk about Prince Caspian. I really am. Because
hell yeah.
Cool.
I'm so hyped to talk about Prince Caspian. That's definitely my favorite one. I probably have the most to say about it. That movie's incredible. This one is also incredible. You got anything else to say before we wrap up? Those are your final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, this is a really good franchise, and if you were just kind of watching the spoiler review, wanting to know what happened before you went into it for the first time, check it out. I mean, seriously, to give this a shot. Yeah. I think that this is one of those forgotten franchises from a lot of people, you know, and one of those really, like, the new generation has definitely overlooked this too. I think that especially with some of the things that we're getting into now, in the new generation, like Game of Thrones and things like that, it's like, you know, this is such a precursor to that, you know, this came before the Game of Thrones hype, and you know, I feel like we have like about 100,000 shows that are like in the fantasy realm right now on TV. I don't know that if it wasn't for like Lord of the Rings and Narnia and Harry Potter, we wouldn't have that. If those weren't successful as movies, and this one was, we got to remember that this was a smash when it came out. It made a lot of fucking money when this came out, and that's because this was a new genre, you know, for people. This was something that was a lot more hot at the time, and it's kind of coming back around now. And I hope people check this one out and don't overlook it. Give it a shot.
So. No, yeah, absolutely. Once again, if you guys are watching this, if you're at this point and you have not seen the Narnia movies, please go see them. Or if you haven't seen them in a while, maybe give them a rewatch. Again, we've said great reasons why, if you loved them as a kid, why you should watch it again as an adult. They really hold up. They're a little bit different and better as an adult. Watch it and try, you'll see what we mean. But yeah, that's all I got as well. So until next week, when we're going to be talking about the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian.
Yeah.
I have been Samee Ramirez. You guys can find me on Instagram at Samee Ramirez 14 and Twitter and Stereo at Samee Ramirez. Dom, where can the people find you?
I was about to say, I'm on Dom. I'm on Twitter at Dom_Martino_.
I'm around.
On Instagram, Dom_Martino_official.
I'm at the movie theater sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes. And you can also check me out. I'm hosting the Animax Entertainment podcast every week. We're gonna have I'm gonna do my Shang-Chi review on Monday, so make sure you guys check that out as well. I'm excited to bring that to you guys and tell you everything I thought of that movie. And yeah, other than that, I mean, I think that that's pretty much it. I hope you guys check out all the other content. We have Adam Leach coming in with a new review series called Inside Scoop, and I'm loving what he's doing with that. It's definitely making me want to step up my game when it comes to my reviews. And yeah, I think that we just hope or expect some better quality stuff coming forward with the channel. We're gonna really try to step it up here. So yeah, thanks.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. And you guys can find the show on Instagram and Twitter at Anorax Official on both places and everywhere. We're on Spotify. We have a merch store. The link is right down here. And yeah, we will see you guys next week, hopefully for Prince Caspian. And until then, thanks for watching. Have a great night.